walkway. My job is to aware you, fully loaded, prepare you for all of the above that I'm never letting get near you. But still in all, give you every advantage I found. Couldn't find a better fit for them, along with my crown. And since the baton was passed, I've been down. Cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
Welcome to another episode of Dad is Not a Noun. My name is Ishmael, changing the narrative for men of color fatherhood, as well as changing the narrative on the things I care about. And today I have a special guest with me today, because I'm all about sharing people's stories, sharing their experience, because it's important, because we're a very diverse and just so many stories that people want to tell. And my special guest is here with me today, and she's going to tell me her story. And she has an amazing story, as well as she has an event coming up that she's going to share with the world. And I'm really happy to have her on with me because she has a phenomenal resume. She's worked for Marvel, DC. She's done work for Time magazine. Like she's just a dope sister, and she's rocking the afro, which I love. She's doing a thing. She resides out of New York. She's also the founder and the coordinator of Women in Comics Collective International, and she's here with me today, Regine L.Sawyer. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
No, thank you for coming on. And then also, you're the founder of Lock It Down. So I wanted
Production.
to give
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to that, because I think that's most really important, especially being a woman of color, that's breaking down a lot of barriers for women of color. Sometimes you often hear, the unsung heroes when it comes to women of color, when it comes to comics or just movies in general, who's just paving the wave, and you don't hear about their story until they pass away, unfortunately. But that's our story in in society today. But again, thank you for coming on. The next question I have for you, because I ask all my guests that comes on the show, because I'm all about mental health. How's your heart?
Oh my God, how could you?
I do
Oh
what
my
I do.
God.
I do what I do.
How's my heart? It's healing.
Okay.
It's healing. I'm in a very deep process of healing my entirety
Mm,
at this point. So as much as I myself preach about mental health, self-care, especially in multimedia spaces, I'm taking my own advice. And
mm,
I have been on a self-healing journey for almost 6 months.
wow.
And so I'm going to continue with it. I'm going to continue with it. I mean, because I realize, and I think this is for a lot of people now, you're realizing that it's supposed to be ongoing. It's not just, okay, you do one or two things, it's constant. So now I've developed a whole new lifestyle for myself.
Mm.
And it's been quite a ride in in moving through this new lifestyle. So I'm going to continue with it and continue, Lord willing, to see the growth that I'm seeing. So that's how my heart is doing. It's healing, and we're going to be on this journey for a while.
And I love that word healing. But just talk about the importance of being like your journey through healing as a creator, as a woman of color, as you create through this journey of a male dominated world where it's like, oh, yeah, she's a woman, and we're going to put her in this box. And this is your perception of a woman of color.
Well, the way that I'm moving through that, because healing is a continuous journey, and specifically with what you just mentioned. I mean, specifically what I started doing since the beginning of the year is going on mini vacations.
Mm.
That has been my life since January. And Klarna and Afterpay and Affirm are my friends. And I've just been going away. And that includes locally. Like I literally just got back from Long Island. I'm spending some days
Okay.
on Long Island here in New York. So a stone's throw away essentially from my house. But I see how it's the each vacation, each visit has changed me. I feel a lot lighter, a lot happier, more at peace, um, more thoughtful, or I should say thoughtful in a different way, as opposed to allowing things to stress me, which listen, I'm not perfect. Things are still stressing me. But but I navigate it differently. It's like, okay, this is what the situation is. Um let me sit back for a minute, because I am a person that as soon as there's a challenge, I jump in head first. And that has really taken a toll on me. And that challenge includes having to deal with being a Black woman in the multimedia industry, specifically in comics. It takes a toll, and folks don't realize. They have no idea, unless they live in a skin similar to mine, what type of stress it puts you under. Um, and so going on this healing journey, specifically on these vacations, has allowed me to sort of just sit back and look at things. It's like, okay, like we're challenged, challenges come up on a daily basis because of who I am as a person. And who I am as a person is not going to go away. So let me let me just sit back for a minute instead of jumping in head first, because the jumping in head first is what is has contributed to me being stressed out. So it's just allowed me to take a beat and to really be thoughtful about things and be mindful about how I react, and and also my anxiety around the reactions of others, um in regards to me and my aesthetic and who I am when I go into these spaces. So it's definitely given me time to breathe. So I'm really appreciative of that, and I'm going to continue it because it's changed my life.
Definitely hear that. And then talk about, because again, going back to that healing aspect, because sometimes when you're in that industry, you have to choose the battles you fight. Has there been a scenario where you chose a battle to not fight because it wasn't worth your mental health?
I'm an Aries, so I'm like, yo, I'm strapping up my boots, let's go. Like that is a part of me. But also what's a part of me is not so much, no, I'm not gonna fight. I'll change the way I fight. So
Hmm.
I'm a strategic person. Again, I live on Mars. I live on Mars. So it's like, okay, you can't always jump head first. You have to really, really think about what your strategy is. And sometimes the strategy is to take a step back and then come from a different angle. So like the challenges that I face on a daily basis, just as me, not just as for Wink, but as me. Um my regular battle has been being taken seriously
Hmm.
as a professional. And when I say seriously, I'm talking about when I'm hired. I'm hired and I'm asked to be on projects, specifically projects that are Black female led. And I'm being asked to do them because I'm a Black woman.
Hmm.
And folks will say like, oh, we want an authentic voice to be behind the series. We want someone that will perhaps come from that perspective of a Black woman. And to whatever extent, that's a lot of pressure, because I don't represent every single Black woman,
Right.
but I know enough. I know enough Black women to draw from, um, as well as my own experiences. But when I start working on the project, oftentimes when I'm putting together what the story's about, or how the character looks at things, and so forth, that will be questioned. Or how, or from what the direction I'll come from, in terms of like not just where the story's going, but how a woman, specifically a Black woman, will respond to certain situations. It's not just questioned. It's deeply challenged, and I fight that. Like, no matter what, like, I will always fight that. But it gets to be daunting because I'll be on a project with another company, and or another person, and it'll be the same thing. And what I ask people to do is, I need you to believe me.
Mm.
And that's what I find the issue to be. Folks, and I'll say it, like, specifically cis men, and as of late I've worked with a lot of Black men specifically. I'm not believed in
Wow.
terms of, like, perspectives and points of view of, like, what happens
Right.
to a Black woman. And it's not that I can't have a conducive conversation, and I have not had to compromise myself or my morals or my ethics. I mean, I have said straight up to folks, like, and it's not in a threatening way. It's like, it's no problem if you have a issue with what I'm telling you, with the fact that you don't believe me, I'll leave the project and you can find somebody else. Like, no, Regine, please don't. And I'm like, no. I'm like, you don't believe me. I'm not going to sit here and fight with you because you don't believe, I don't know, that, a day for every Black woman is to go get your nails done. No, that is not that is not for every single Black woman. Why am I fighting with you about that? Why would you think that's part of an intricate part of all of us? Maybe for some women, absolutely, go get your nails done, sis, and enjoy your life. But someone else might want to go to the park and read. So, someone's going to the beach. Somebody's cooking her favorite, grilled cheese sandwich. Like, let's have some diversity in the perspectives, not just in skin tone. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's things like that that, for me personally, when I'm working on books, is the challenge that I face. And it gets to be daunting, but I never give up and say no, because the thing is that there's so many people that have eyes, not just on me, but other Black women and Black femmes and Black AFAB folks that are doing these different projects that have these lead characters that resemble us. Because of that, I'm not going to stop the fight, because that means I'm saying that person has to deal with that too. And I take that to heart because I am the coordinator and founder of WinC. Because if I'm saying it as a coordinator and founder of WinC, that says to someone else, like, well, Regine compromised, then I'm going to do the same. So I can't. I can't. I can't do that, especially if for WinC, one of our things is to have more folks in the industry that look like us, and to support stories that are different from like mainstream, like, white media stories. Like, if it's promoting that, I can't just take whatever job, and I can't just conform. It's a no-go for me. So it's so as you can see, those vacations, I needed those vacations bad, bad, bad. Because that is a constant challenge, is being believed.
No, definitely. And I think one of the things that, when you talk about the concept of being believers, like, I'm not a big fan of the word diversity. Like I told my last guest that was on the show,
I'm not either.
when you think of the word diversity, uh, they already typecast you as a certain type of a person or a type of thing. And so when you get into those fields, they already have a preconceived notion. And then when you tell them, hey, no, this is where I want to go. And then you're constantly telling, please be like Dave Chappelle, please believe me, please believe me that, this is not every Black woman or any woman of color. And I know, like you alluded to before, like that challenge of, like, telling people, no, not all Black women think this way. But at the same time, a lot of companies benefited of, getting these grants for saying, oh yeah, we're a diversified team because we have all these women of color on our board, but not dealing with the root of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not I'm not really talking about large companies. The interesting thing is I've never faced that with large companies.
Mm.
Not as of yet because there's still time. But that particular thing I have not faced. But with smaller companies I have. That's for sure.
Right. And just, I know you talked about it earlier, but just talk about how, that frustration and how, that constant of trying to tell people that, not all women of color are like that. And like I said, it's got to be frustrating for you, as a Black woman. It's like, no, that's not the case, but, if you want to dive into that a little bit more, how, it's just, like I said, it's just, you want to pull your hair out.
I mean, it's I do, but because I am a vocal person, like
Right.
I like at least like especially for this stuff, because if again, like my mind is always on the next person that is hired. It's like
Right.
I gotta raise a stink now. I can't wait. It's like
Right.
I can't wait. Like I'm in the middle of writing this story, and like if I say this later, it's gonna like, Regine, why didn't you say anything? It's like no, I gotta say it now. So what I do to keep from pulling my nice little fro out is saying it up front. And saying it up front as soon as those things start to come into play, I'll say, well, here's the thing, like every Black woman, we're not a monolith. We don't think we don't all think the same way. We are not a hive mind. We all do different things. Different things excite us. And I will say, like, listen, if you know Black women that do that, what you're asking me to do, cool. But there are other women that don't do that. Like it's just, it sounds so simple, but it really isn't, because you start to realize where people's minds are. And that their minds are linked into a stereotype.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily interested in going against that stereotype. They want to push the narrative, and I gotta say no. Like no. I was like, and I shouldn't even have to fight for something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of like, yeah, like having a character, like, oh, make sure if she's having, she's trying to treat herself, that she's getting a weave put in, she's getting whatever. And listen, absolutely, there are Black women that do. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't make it seem like that's all we do, and that I have to fight you tooth and nail over it. That's what gets me, when I really have to fight tooth and nail, and and really have to come down hard and say, listen, you are being really prejudiced against Black women. your prejudice is showing. Because why do I have to fight for this? I'm like, what I look like, I don't, that might not be something that I'm personally doing. Even though I have no problem like implementing certain nuances, because again, we're not a monolith, to a story, to different characters. But again, it's that thing of, like of no, Regine, but but a lot of Black women do such and such. I'm like, who do you not like? The fact that I have to fight for certain things, like, not, like I said, not even some of the things I mentioned, to give the example of getting your nails done and getting an install, but it's not necessarily that. It's just these wild assumptions that folks have, that I mentioned, like some of these issues I've had with Black men. It's like, where's your mama? That's what your mama do? Like, just like, why are you just so 10 toes down on this and not receiving what I'm saying? Like, what is happening? But when I push, I usually get what I require. Because I'm relentless. But I'll also say in a minute, like, listen, I'll walk away from this project if you're so married to Black women being viewed in a particular way. Again, I made some simple examples, but there's some things that were stereotypical, that I had to say, yo, pump the brakes. What I definitely have had to do that. But again, I am at a point in my career that where with where I am mentally and emotionally and spiritually, where I'll say no to money. I'll say no money in a hot minute, and I require money to live. I really do. I really do. But if it compromises my ethics, my morality, I'll say no in a hot minute. I know, I said, God's gonna bless me, because I'm not selling my soul for this. And especially knowing that there are people that are watching me. There are people that are watching me, like, namely, like my members, other colleagues and stuff that respect me. I don't want that to go down the tubes because I compromise myself, because it says to them that, oh, I should do the same thing too. And it's like, no, because it's not going to help our community. It's not going to help our community to make compromises like that. We want people to know that we want to create stories that are reflective of so many different facets of us. So I that's really my stance on all of that. I mean, I could talk about that all day.
No,
But
I appreciate that you broke that down to me, because that goes down to my next question, because I love how you brought the word community. So I'm going to bring community and comics to wrap it together. Talking about your early love for comic books. Just talk about your journey in your love for comics and community, and where did that kind of start from?
So when I was a little girl, my father used to read the Sunday Funnies to me. We read them cover to cover. Even Kathy, I make him read Kathy, and he was like, "Why do you want to read about this 35-year-old depressed white woman?" Like, why do you want me to? I was like, "No, Daddy, read it." So we would do that together. That was our thing, and then he started buying me Archie comics. Betty and Veronica, Jughead, the whole Archie universe. And
I want to let people. I want to let people know Archie was Saved by the Bell before Saved by the Bell. So I just want to.
That's right. It was. It's true. It was. I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that comparison because it's so true. I mean, but I loved all the digests. I really got into it, and then at some point we got a Nintendo in the house for I guess it was Christmas 91. I think 91 or 92. And no, couldn't be. No, I think it was 90. It probably was 1990. And my brother got an X-Men video game, the very first X-Men video game, and we played it all the time. And that's when I discovered Storm. I discovered Storm. I discovered all the other different characters, the few characters that they had in it. And I was like, "What is this?" And so my brother then introduced me to the X-Men. And we would also watch some of the different like cartoons from the 70s. So they would come on in the 80s. So we'd watch Spider-Man and Friends. And that may have been the one of the first times I saw Storm, but it didn't register that was the same character when I saw the video game. And we would watch Greatest American Hero. We would watch the Hulk. We would watch all of that. And so my brother introduced me to mainstream comics, specifically Marvel. So from there, I started collecting the comics. They sold them at our local bodega. And so I buy them there. And then I started collecting the comic book cards. And I have a big collection of both. I have a big I have a nice size comic book collection, but I have a vast comic book card collection. That was my jammy jam. Okay. On top of reading the books, because what I loved so much about the comic book cards was that it gave you a description of each character, but it also gave the stats. But also what I found really interesting for I forget what year they started doing this, specifically for the Marvel cards, where they would put a slogan that the person would say. And it would just give you a little taste of who that person was as a person. And I think that might have been around the time I started drawing my own characters. So I started drawing my own. I stacks of old sketchbooks of me just drawing my characters. And I just loved it. Like, I love comics. I love the written word. I loved art. My mother was an artist. God rest her soul. She was a painter. And so we had a lot of art discussions like in my house. Like we were a creative bunch of people. Um, and so like so comics for me just felt like the end all be all. Like I just loved it. Um, um, and it continued into high school, and I still collected, and I started writing stories. Like I was writing stories before, but I started writing stories a little bit more, and I actually used that skill to get me some scholarships to go to college. And then once I hit college, like it kind of went to the wayside, not too much because I love comics. I still loved it. But it's like, oh gosh, gotta get a quote unquote real job, right? So, so I studied to become a chef, but comics never left me, like not even once. But it wasn't until I left college and started working that I started to consider I started considering getting a second degree in cartooning. And I was chatting with a friend of mine in a comic book shop. And I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting a cartooning degree and so forth. And a gentleman overheard me. And he said, oh, what kind of work do you do? What are you into in terms of comic books? So I told him, and I told him that I was writing some things, and I had some concepts. And he said, oh, well, I have an independent company. Why don't you send me some of your work? So I did that. And flash forward, I became the managing editor of his comic book company. And I did that for a year. And while there, I taught myself how to write comics because I was familiar with writing scripts. I learned a lot about script writing when I was in high school and junior high, ironically, and and I also was very familiar with just editing work because um I uh I had got an opportunity to be at the writers camp for the National Book Foundation, and they did like this really intricate course on editing. So I know like little basic things, but not the entirety. So that there I with him I learned how to write comics, how to edit them, the whole thing. And after being there for a year, I decided I can do this for myself. It's like I'm not getting paid. I wasn't getting paid. I said, let me do this for myself. So I started Lock It Down Productions in late 2007, and I published my first book in 2009. And I was publishing pretty steadily. I want to be much more steady with it, but money.
Right.
Money is a thing. Paying people is a thing, of course. Uh, so so community comes in when I entered the industry because I met a lot of folks in the Black comic book community, and at the time, mostly men. And for the most part, I was received pretty okay.
Right.
But there was this feeling of where are the women? Where are the women? Yeah, and I met a couple that and I was happy. It seems like, but where are the rest of them? There has to be more. So, uh, I think it was 2012, 12 years ago. I was asked to moderate a panel about women in comics at a show in the Bronx, and on the panel there were a bunch of other women of color. And it was very shocking for the audience to see all these women of color that worked in the industry. Some of them I didn't know, but I met them that day. And so the audience, they were really thrilled about it and had a lot of questions. And the women themselves, they were they're pretty taken aback because they were just like, some of them were just like, I didn't know this person did this. I didn't know that person did that. And so after the panel, one of them had said to me, like, I've been in the industry for 13 years and no one invites me to anything. Like I'm never invited to panels. Like I'm never like that. She is, and that's Aletha E. Martinez. She's the first woman of color to pencil mainstream books for Marvel and DC.
Wow.
So she drew Iron Man for 2 years. She drew Black Panther. She drew I can't even say as many people who she drew, because she drew so many books up until this day. I mean, she's drawn just every single character on lead books in both Marvel and DC. Like, she's tremendous, but people didn't know her, and part of it was that it's a protective mechanism. Like, if they don't see me, they can't judge me, and a lot of the other ladies felt the same way. But after chatting with them, I said, well, maybe we should do some more of these things. And it sort of kind of happened organically. Like, all of a sudden, we were being asked to do different events, like panel discussions specifically. And then it grew into doing art shows. Then it grew into doing workshops. And then it grew into us having a convention. And that was 12 years ago. This is our 12th year. So Women in Comics the way it grew, it just seemed like again, it's very organic. So it felt like once you had like the Voltron mechanisms come together, they just linked up. They just linked up. And I mean, to the community aspect, I mean, to really speak to it, the importance of it, I think it's important to be able to come together as professionals and colleagues and talk about your experiences.
Right.
But also to show the community, specifically historically underrepresented communities, that folks that look like them work these jobs, work these careers, because a lot of them don't know. And so our focus has been to go into these communities and bring the Comic-Con, the large Comic-Con experience to them, and for it to be accessible financially. Most of our events are free for that purpose, so that anybody can come and they can talk to maybe an artist that they've been wanting to talk to for years, but they were never able to because they couldn't go to New York Comic Con because the tickets are, $150 and up. And they couldn't get there, but they find out like, oh, so and so's down the block from my house, and they can meet them and probably have an even longer conversation with them. So that was one of the most important things for us. Like, we need to let people know that not just that we exist, but they can do this too. If they so choose. But also to let parents know that your child can be an artist and still make a living. I like to say, like, your child's not going to be sitting in your basement drawing Winky for the rest of their lives. Like they like they can, if they put their minds to it and they're serious about it, they can absolutely have a career. So it was all those different layers of community that created and has sustained WinC.
Facts. And I love WinC because it's a subtle acknowledgement to women of color. Like, when it comes to men of color, we give the head nod. I love the WinC, but I want to keep it 100 right here. Is that, with Memorial Day on Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are not invited to the barbecue. The barbecue, right? And so when you're talking about the community, just like talk about the importance of protecting what you create. Because you get into those fields and they're like, yay, we want you to be a part of it. And then all of a sudden, something that you created, they take it because you didn't read the fine print.
Yeah. I want to make sure I'm understanding you. So stop me if I'm not.
Okay, I'll phrase it. I'll phrase it. You know how you create your original characters, right?
Yeah.
And you go into
someone hijacks it.
Yeah, someone hijacks it. Yes.
So how do we stop people? How do I stop you from hijacking it?
Yes.
Well, what's fascinating? I think one thing is that a lot of folks don't want to do this work. That's what, at least that I've noticed, and that other members have noticed because we talk about it. Like, why aren't there more like organizations, not just about like WinC, but where were the organizations before? Like, there have been some organizations that did similar work to WinC, and they do not exist anymore. And they don't exist anymore because there was a lot of like infighting, a lot of a lot of Highlanderism, like I can be the only one, there only can be one. I think because of the fact that it is a lot of work, talking to people, galvanizing your community is a lot of work. You have to stay steady with it. And everyone doesn't have the fortitude for that. And you have to be very community minded to do it. So there are organizations that have been around that have been doing that type of work. Absolutely. But there aren't a lot. I mean, specifically if you're going to talk about like having an organization like WinC that supports women and gender non-conforming folks of color. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And so it's hard to hijack something when you really have to put elbow grease in. Like, this is not the sort of thing. It's like, okay, let me maneuver my way in and, push somebody out. It's not easy, because when you look at the amount of work that has to be done, just from maintaining a website, keeping people engaged with content, with newsletters, hosting events, grant writing for these events, applying to become a nonprofit, going through that varied amount of paperwork, going to conventions and being a hub for people to come to, like when you have a booth or having an event so people have a safe space to go to. All of that takes work. Nurturing people as individuals. I mean, there have been more than a few members or people that I definitely, along with maybe like some other members, we were comforting in a bathroom because something ridiculous happened on the convention floor, or talking to folks and they're having such a difficult time in the industry, like they're having a traumatic time, dealing with that, dealing with keyboard crips, all these people that have so much shit to say. Excuse me. Oops.
No, that's fine. No, don't worry about the
There's
curse.
so much stuff to say. Attacking people because of who they are and sending death threats, rape threats, and all this stuff. And you're supporting your member that is going through that. Like and like really supporting them, like texting people, calling them, seeing if they're okay. Like, that's a lot of work. Everybody's not going to do that. Everyone doesn't care in that way, the way, like, I want to say, like, the WinC members care about each other. So for me, having concerns that someone's going to try to come in and bastardize the organization, that's not going to happen. They would drop everything and run. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, someone can try to make their own organization. We need more organizations. We need more of them. So to see more, I'd be happy, because it's important for folks to know that they have support. And also, when you have more organizations, you have more people that's doing activism work in an industry such as comics. You start to see change. You can't help it, because more people are talking and they're pushing and they're being active. They're not just saying a whole bunch of stuff on the internet. They're actually doing things for things to be better. I mean, that would be great to see more of, but unfortunately, like, because like I said, it's so much work. Nobody's gonna run up and do that. Nobody. It's just too much. It's just too much.
No, and I think it's important too, because people don't realize the long journey of the civil rights movement. Like, a lot of people think it started with Dr. King. Civil rights movement goes back farther than Dr. King. And
Yes.
so, like you were talking about before, it's the groundwork, it's the struggle, it's the years. Not a lot of people are built to withstand that time to just keep it going. Some people are just happy with that check and say, all right, yeah, you can have it, you know,
Yes.
and then regret it at the end of the day to see that their IP is like worth millions of dollars and they're smacking themselves in the head like, oh my God, like and again, and I understand that that's just life.
It is. It is. And but I will say for that specifically when it comes to creatorship, I mean, if you're making something specifically for it to sell it to somebody, and you feel like, okay, I'm not super married to this character, like they can have it. I
Right.
That's fine. I get that. But if it's your baby, if it's your baby, you know that if you see the wrong thing happen, you're gonna fall out. I would suggest, you keep as much control as you possibly can if you are choosing to go with whatever company. So
Mm,
that's my suggestion on that.
definitely agree with that 100%. And then talking about controlling the narrative. You have a event coming up June 29th, Pride Fest. You wanna talk about that?
Yes. So this is our WinC Creative Conference. So the theme this year is Pride Fest. This is the second Pride Fest we've done. We did one in 2019. And this event is built to highlight queer creators of color.
Mm,
And we're super excited to be hosting this. We're going to be hosting it at Flushing Town Hall in Queens, which is a historic venue, has a lot of history behind it. And they have been our event partners for the past 2 years. Um, with the conference itself, we're going to have panel discussions. We're also going to have some professional workshops as well as wellness workshops and a full artist market. So I'm really excited about it. I mean, I love the conference in general. I love doing it. I've been doing it for a while now, and I mean, the overall purpose of WinC Creative Conference has been to service creators. Fans can come too, absolutely, they're more than welcome. But it really is a space to nurture veteran creatives and up and coming creatives, so that they again, going back to community, they know and see and can receive that community is here. There are folks to support you. So if you want to talk about like, listen, I'm personally having a hard time like in this industry, or I'm I'm trying to figure out a way to keep creative. This is the event. This is the event for you. It was born out of the COVID-19 pandemic, because so many folks were out of work, and it was really stressful, really stressful for a lot of folks, not just folks, of course, in the comic book industry or multimedia, but especially stressful for folks who not just live paycheck to paycheck, but are 1099 workers.
right.
Like it was so difficult. So we wanted to create this event so folks can talk and speak their mind about how they're feeling, not just about their project. Like they can do both. So that's the point of the conference, because I think a lot of other shows don't. That's not their focus, which is fine.
Right.
But I felt like there's a place for us to talk about how we're feeling, but also like where we want to go with those feelings, where we want to go with our projects, and that's where the wellness workshops come in. This year we're going to have a meditation workshop, and so
Nice.
for folks who are feeling the feels, they're going to learn how to focus it and take care of their mentals while they're working in this industry.
Nice. Nice. I'm excited about that. Um, my last question to you, because we recently got over the strike when it comes to in the film industry. You being in that part of that, connected to that world, do you feel like will there be kind of a blowback when it comes to writers and comic book artists and writers in your field? Do you feel like that might kind of go into that world?
Well, it's a little bit precarious because the thing is that we don't have a union.
Hmm.
Um, it is illegal for us to create a union.
Wow.
at this juncture. We can have guilds, like Women in Comics essentially is a guild, but we cannot have a union because most of us are freelance, if not all of us. And so when you're a freelance person, it's a no. It's a no in the United States of America. So I mean, so there's so watching from the sidelines, it was interesting to see if not necessarily blowback, but would there be a way for us to get together and to have some type of representation as a community of artists? And more folks learn this. It's a no. It's a no. So that's a difficult part. What it does affect though is how how AI is used. Um, in various work. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see. I mean, I'm sure we are seeing some type of change in that, but that was a big discussion. Like if companies say like, well, hey, I can get the AI to draw this real good, and they'll draw it just like Jim Lee, like you know, and having to say like, well, if you draw it like Jim Lee, you might be in for possibly a lawsuit, even though that's another conversation about, or like artistic styles cannot be copywritten or trademarked.
Right.
But it wouldn't be a good look. So there are certain conversations that have come out of that, but it hasn't affected our paychecks for sure.
Right.
No, it hasn't affected the laws on having a union.
No, and that's good to hear. It has impacted affected the paycheck. But what I worry about is down the road is like with this technology, is that if they hire you, they can find a way to like replicate your likeness style without
Yes.
comparing it, saying it's you
Yeah.
that
And
did it.
that's the bone of contention. Oh, but I meant in terms of affecting our paycheck, meaning us getting bet more money. That's
Okay.
affecting us getting more money. So, but no, but yeah, that is an issue. That's a concern. That's definitely a concern. That's why I mentioned the artistry part. Like okay, we want this machine to do Jim Lee style.
Yeah.
Like, what I mean, right now, again, because our artistic styles are not copywritten, I think you still probably could sue. Could sue. I don't know if you'll win, but yeah, it's. I think certain laws have to be put in place that like someone cannot just generate your style of doing things via AI.
No, and I agree with that. But often what happens is when you talk about making laws, Congress is usually like 20 years behind when it comes to
Yes,
technology. And that's the
they are.
reality.
It is.
But
It is.
but this has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you for coming on, chatting it with me. How can people find you?
You can find me on X, formerly Twitter, at Lock It Down, LOCKETT down. You can find me on IG, Lock It Down Official. If you're looking for WinC stuff, because we do have amazing WinC stuff happening this year, on all the platforms, it's at WinC NYC. Also the website www.womenandcomicscollective.org.
And then also talk about the event. Like is it a pay event or is it free for people to come in? And
General admission is free. We also have some VIP tickets that are $15, and you'll get this amazing swag bag filled with comics and other goodies that will be exclusive to the show. We're not going to have them anywhere else. It'll be at Flushing Town Hall, 10 to 5. on Saturday, June 29th. I know. I was like, wait a second, like had a brain freeze for a second. And it's pretty easy to get to. I mean, hopefully, the weekend train traffic does what it wants to do, but
I won't worry about it because the Mets are not doing really well, so it should be fine.
Wow.
I'm being honest. I'm just saying. Nobody
that
goes
is
to
true because it is on the 7 train route. It is on the 7 train route, and you can't take the Long Island Railroad to it. If y'all in the New York City area, or if you're coming into New York, come through. You'll have a good time. We're a fun bunch of people.
Definitely. And I recommend girl dads take your daughters to this event. If you have a son, I recommend you take your son because you'll be enamored with so much information. Just people that's willing to share so much knowledge they have on the industry and so much information, which I'm a big component of. So you definitely should check it out. All the links will be in the description below. Again, this has been another conversation here on the podcast, and we're out. Peace. All right, stay on.